Hey, what's up guys? It's Jay. Hope you guys are doing well. So I have been using the Retroid Pocket 5 for about a week now. Had some time to kind of sit down, game with it quite a bit, and now I have, give you guys my thoughts of what I think. Anything's changed from that 1 week. I try to put as much time in just so I can give you guys better impressions or review of the product of this. I try to give you guys, I try to give as much time into playing the device as much as I can, just so I can give you guys an informed decision if you want to buy this, if you're interested in buying this, or should you buy an older one like the Retro Pocket 4 Pro. So yeah, I hope you guys can subscribe and like this video. It really does help me a lot to continue making videos like this. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, so hit that bell notification as well. So it's been a week. What have I noticed from the kind of previous video I did? I'll link it down below. It's the kind of detailed impressions. I kind of compared it to the 4 Pro, the Odin 2, and now I have a better idea after using it, because one of the things I mentioned was that the grips on the back of the 5 aren't like super thick. You see it's like fairly thin device because it's, it's just a bigger device in general. It's actually kind of thinner than the Mini. And again, watch that video if you guys want more of a detailed look, but in general, it's a little bit thicker. I think the biggest thing is that, when compared to like the 4 Pro, which is kind of closer to, right, in size and everything, you see it's about the same thickness, like I mentioned before. There's no grips here, but there's a little bit of grip here. So they kind of wanted to not change the shape a whole lot on E5, just to kind of make it kind of similar, right, in that aspect, especially if you're upgrading or you're into the new scene or into the scene of retro gaming. So, with that in mind, right, what are the differences? I'll tell you this right off. If you can afford it, get the 5. I think that this should be the base option. This is the definitive version of the Retroid devices. I think the 5 is just the perfect device in terms of size, form factor, performance, everything like that. Value for money, all of that. When you get higher to 200, which it is higher, right? It's 220, but I think it's worth it, worth the extra money. And I'll show you why in just a little bit. But again, let's go over the hardware specs between these two, because I think these two are the main ones that you were probably going to look at. The Mini is a whole different category, even though it has the RP name, right? It's, it's a kind of a different device. So that's why I'm not really going to talk about it here. And I did talk about it in the previous video though. So let's talk about the buttons. So the Mini, when it came out, the buttons were like scraping against the kind of the shell of the device, but this one, the buttons are completely fine, no problems. They are in that Nintendo Switch layout, which, both these two devices do have that. So, just something to be aware of, I would say. But you see, there's no scratching on the side, whereas the Mini that has some scratching, you kind of have to like modify the shell or the button a little bit to kind of scrape it off. They are membrane, not bad buttons. Like, they're fine. I don't really notice like problems with them per se, or issues or anything like that. So everything's been a-okay. Start and select, easy to get to, really close to the buttons. One thing I will point out is that, similarly to these two devices, right, all of the issues that kind of I mentioned with the 4 Pro kind of do exist on the 5, as in if you're trying to play 3D games like Switch games or PS2 or whatever, anything that relies on a joystick, left-hand joystick, it's a little bit hard to get to. Your thumb is here, right? The D-pad, if you're playing fighting games, totally cool, right? RPGs, whatever. But if you're playing with doing this, right, you see that you kind of have to move your thumb down, and you kind of have to like compress your thumb. And over time, that kind of stresses kind of this part of your thumb here. And so, if you play for a while, like I played Tunic for about an hour and a half, and I was just like, after that, I was like, oh, it's a little bit annoying, right? You can kind of feel it. But I think these type of devices, I would only play for like an hour or two max. And playing 3D games on these kind of devices, something like a Tunic where you have to move a lot, or Hades or something of that ilk where you have to kind of move a lot, move quickly with a joystick, it's a little bit hard to do. And that's why a lot of people on the 4 Pro, they got the grip extender or a grip case or whatever you want to call it. You can order it through Retroid, or you can, I think, through Etsy as well. They might have some custom solutions there too, but similar problems, right? Because the device is just so small in terms of, the form factor. So you're not going to get that real estate there. So you see with the Odin 2 here, it's quite a bit bigger compared to the other two. Look at that. It's so much bigger, and it's a 6-inch display. You see it does have some bezels there on the bottom and the sides here, but yeah, it's quite a bit bigger though. Right, so this is, this Retro Pocket 5 is more like a Switch Lite if you have one, pretty much the same size. I don't have one, but I looked at the dimensions and it looks pretty much the same, so yeah. But the Odin 2 kind of just sits in between, but it's too big to kind of like carry with you all the time. A little bit heavier too, and so when you compare the two, it's like, well, why would you want that, right? So yeah. And then there was another option from AYN as well, the Odin 2 Mini. I didn't pick that up because I didn't like what they did with the display. They went with mini LED, which it looked pretty bad from what I saw. So I ended up not getting that one at all and just skipping it. And also it's very expensive. It's more expensive than the Retroid devices. So that was the other reason. And so I just opted to say like, nah, I'm not going to get it. I'm going to stick with the Pocket 5. I'm glad they came out with one. So yeah, enough about talking about the specs and all this stuff. So I'm trying to think what else you guys might want to know about these two devices, right? So one thing is that, this device, the 5, is kind of boring, right? It's not really as cool as this Crystal. Like this Crystal, the 4 Pro, when I first started doing reviews for this kind of stuff, like, look how nice it is. The casing, just the texture, it's also kind of rough. It's similarly here, they have the same kind of rough texture, but again, like, it's not as cool looking. You kind of lose that aspect, the fun aspect, if you will, of the physical device that, oh yeah, it's, retro looking or whatever. This is not a retro device looking thing, right? It looks like a modern, sleek device, modern PSP, if you will, maybe. But I'm totally cool with it. I just wanted to bring it up to you guys because I know some of y'all like to have your nice, cool looking retro device looking thing. So yeah, but the black is really nice. The screen just melts in, especially playing 4x3, anything like that. You don't have to really worry about like, letterboxing or whatever. So that's probably the best thing about the device in terms of an upgrade compared to these two devices, right? Because in terms of like handheld grip, all of that, I would say it's like a little bit better, but I don't know if it's worth the extra like, $50 or so. And it may be cheaper if you can find a deal. But what is worth it is the screen and the performance. The performance is kind of less so, and I'll go into more details why. And so, right, we have right here the Odin 2, right? And it has a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which is top of line, super new, all of that stuff. The 4 Pro is an older chip, right? It's using, I forget the name, but it's not Snapdragon. So it's a different set of drivers. So it doesn't support the message drivers or turn up drivers that's available for, Adreno drivers. So it's not compatible. So you can't just use them, right? And so when kind of for Switch emulation, for example, Yuzu, right, at the time, or Citra, whatnot, they all developed targeting, Qualcomm drivers essentially. And so, unless you have a Qualcomm device, you won't get that extra driver support, which does help in some games. And so was what was valued from the community's perspective. Hey, like, we want these drivers because they can perform better in some games and whatnot. You can customize it and all that stuff before the whole, Lotsu stuff went on. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is it's important because when you're playing Switch games, right, you're going to want to set that up. The problem is that this device is using a Snapdragon 865, which I think came out in 2019 or 2020. Might want to double check that, but it's been a while. And because it's been a while, they haven't got a lot of support. It's probably end of life at this point or close to it, given that it's so old. when it released or when it developed, really, right? So they have so many years to support it, and back then the support for these kind of things wasn't as good as now. With all that being said, so what ends up happening is that you don't get a lot of driver support, even though it has a Snapdragon name to it, right? It is from Qualcomm, all of that stuff. It's an older platform, essentially, of the architecture of the GPU. But in terms of raw performance, it's better than the 4 Pro in terms of if you're running RetroArch on Swan Station, any of those older systems, basically, I would say PS2 and below, or PS2 equivalent and below, I would say the 5 is better overall. You're still going to have some slowdowns because it's not an HN2. It's not going to be this where it's just straight up raw power, just going to push through everything, no problem. So that is what you're giving up in terms of this is an older chip. Say if you went with the Odin 2 Mini, right, which also has a HN2. And if performance is like your #1 type priority, you don't care about the screen as much and anything else, get an Odin 2 Mini. But if you're less so about that, you want more of a holistic experience, the 5 is kind of where it's at, I think. And we'll go into that just right now. So right now I have, I'm going to test some Switch games that won't get me in trouble. So I'm going to bring up Star Ocean. So actually, I don't have Star Ocean installed on my 4 Pro. So what I did want to show you guys, just to give you guys an idea. You see right now, I'm running essentially 30 frames a second, very smooth. You get little drops here and there right there at the beginning. It's loading extra shaders and whatnot if it needs to. But right now, super smooth, right? And I am using a custom driver. Okay, so performance is pretty good. No issues there. Super smooth. Like in this town, actually pretty complex. There's lots of stuff here, lots of objects and stuff to load in. But you can see it's really smooth. I didn't think I have anything specific on there. I think I'm still using Yen 9 version 2. So yeah, once you set that up, right, you're solid. So let's try another game just to give you guys an idea, I think. So Unicorn Overlord is another game loading up right now where the 5 is better than the 4 Pro. You'll see why in a second. It's similar to Star Ocean I just showed. You get about 20 frames on the 4 Pro, but on the 5, 30 frames easily. And in battle, it's been fine. Haven't played this game a lot. I've just been playing other games at the moment, but I did check. I did open this game just to make sure that it's, you know, working smoothly and whatnot. So here we go. You can see it is running 53, almost 60 frames a second. So it is crazy good. You do have to set up, you know, performance mode and all that stuff. You can, I think you can do it normal, like normal performance mode, but I just do high performance just to have it preset up whenever I launch a Yuzu or whatnot. So yeah, you can see smooth, but we'll put this off to the side real quick. Bring in here. You see already, it's already like 30 something frames. It's gonna load up, but you'll see it's gonna drop. Yeah, so hopefully you can see the frame number right there, but it does say 15 frames a second, or 13 now, 12. So yeah, I mean, you could tell just looking at the video quality, or the video itself, you could tell, see, the guy's moving ultra slow. It's not even, it's a day and night difference between the two. Look at these two right here. So yeah, you could tell, you know, 40 frames, 50 frames, it's almost double, or more than double really, of the 4 Pro when you compare it to this specific game. So that's why I had to point out that not every game is going to be like this. 3DS, GameCube, those type of systems, you're going to see more of a performance gap. But anything else, it's really up to the emulator, to the software, and I think the 4 Pro and the 5 can both handle those pretty well. And then so to give you guys an idea, I pressed them both up at the same time. You can see that the 5 Pro is actually loaded already. You'll notice that the 4 Pro, just loading up things in general, is going to be a little bit slower on any system that I've played so far. Lower end stuff, you know, 8-bit, 16-bit, fine, but everything 32-bit up, you know, is going to be a little bit slower. But you see it loaded in quick. Look at this. It's still loading. So you'll notice those type of things, but it's really game dependent, system dependent, all that stuff. But in terms of performance, right, this kind of give you guys an idea of like raw performance differences. But besides, you know, obviously you can look online, but for the benchmarks, but you can see it's super smooth, no problem. 30 frames. You don't really see frame drops right now. I don't have actual like frame checker besides the frame number, but if you're looking for frame times, but you know, it's steady 30. But right here, you see it's 28. You move out, look at that lag. I mean, probably doing shader compilation, but you see that the performance is just not able to handle that. But when I was playing on this device, on the 5, it's even with shader compilation happening, it's not a huge problem. It can just power through it. So yeah, it is, yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I ended up not playing this game for a long time until I got my Odin 2 and basically replaced this device because the Odin 2 can, you know, pretty much play everything. But now that, you know, the 5 is out, well, I'm like, dang, I'm going to play on the 5. And I've been playing on the 5. This is kind of the one game I've been playing the most on for the past week or so. So I really like this game. It's kind of like a Souls-like, fairly fun, especially if you guys have not played it, definitely recommend it. So what does that mean, right? It just means still get the 5, right? You see that there are some performance differences there between the 4 Pro and the 5. And for me, I think that's worth it, right? The screen, for me, is already worth it. Then you add on top some slight performance increases. Perfect. 3DS, you can kind of is about the same, to be honest. You can eke out a little bit more performance, but really 3X is probably the most you can get on some games. And even then, yeah, if you really want like perfect, quote unquote, perfect performance on 3DS or, you know, Switch, I guess, you really want Gen 2 device or equivalent. So Odin 2, INEO, Pocket Air S, or sorry, Pocket S, Evo. Those two devices, right? The really high-end Snapdragon devices are going to be able to play those type of games, but you know, that's just going to increase the cost. If you're watching this video, I'm pretty sure you're not really thinking about, oh, I want to spend $500, $400 for, you know, a retro emulation device, and they can play some Android games. I don't think that's really value for most people's money. Maybe for enthusiasts, you know, you can get those kind of devices, but you know, I think this is a kind of a good price range to look at, you know, a mid-range, you know, quality device. So, you know, if you're looking between these two, right, again, you know, there are some performance differences. I wouldn't say as big of a gap as, for me, the OLED display and the new design, where it kind of has, you know, really get to see the borders, black borders, and there's no bezel per se. Technically, the bezel is just underneath the glass panel there, but it's just a overall better experience, just overall, in terms of just the grip. You know, they fixed the stuff with the trigger being kind of not as like tight. It's kind of loose on this device. Those type of things they kind of like, you know, fixed up. You know, has RGB and stuff like that. So it has more modern amenities. Triggers and bumpers, great. They actually also addressed the fan. It was really noisy on the 4 Pro in terms of like, not like it's bad, but it was just like high pitched per se. It's more high pitched because it's I think it's a smaller fan. I don't know if they upgraded the size of the fan here, or they probably most likely just switched to a different vendor for the fan. But the fan is loud also, but it's not like high pitched or annoying sounding. So when you're playing Switch games, or you have a system where you need to push the device, you'll be okay. You can still hear the sound, but it's more ambient sound. And when you have, you know, headphones on, or you're playing with the volume up, you're not gonna really notice the fan there too often. You do notice it sometimes, but to be honest, I noticed it more on this device because, well, you know, it's more high pitched, so you can pass through those frequencies. One other thing I did want to mention, the speakers. I didn't really talk about it in the impressions video because I didn't really get to play the device yet, but I would say the device is pretty good for its size. It's a little bit less on the bassy side, so it's more treble mid-range. You only hear a lot of bass, so I don't know, it's because of the design. They don't have the little styrofoam balls in there or whatever, but it's not as good, but it's better than the 4 Pro, I will say. So if we're just comparing these two, right, that are close to each other in apple to apples comparison, the sound is better. But I would say it's like maybe like a 10%. I wouldn't get the 5 just because the sound's better per se. Let's put it that way. All the stuff combined together makes it worth it, is really what I'm trying to tell you. So if you have the money, get the 5. Don't have the money, get the 4 Pro, essentially. The grips, you know, yeah, it's, you know, not there. But again, if you're playing this as like your only device and you're playing it for a long time, but I'm not doing that, I think that you'll have to get the grips, to be honest. Otherwise, you know, step up to Odin 2 or get the 5, I think. The grips, again, you know, not going to be able to like play for a long time without get, you know, a little bit annoyed. But like, if you are curious about getting like Odin 2 or Portal or anything like that, so I have a Portal on order. Hopefully it comes soon. I hope be able to get a review to you guys and give you guys a better idea between all these kind of devices, whether it's worth the extra $200 plus to get, you know, get a higher end device that can play at pretty much everything with the HN2 device there, architecture there. So make sure you guys are subscribed. Again, it really does help me. I'm trying to hit that 1K sub goal, if you will. And yeah, if you guys like this video, comment, let me know what you guys think. Any questions, let me know down below as well. I'll try to answer as many as I can. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I will see you guys later. Peace.